It seems that everyone has different interpretations of what's happening around them. What's gold for someone is mud to someone else. So, what's preferable, unpleasant, beautiful, or undesirable, although consensus exists, ultimately lies in the eye of the beholder. Nevertheless, many people have difficulty seeing their realities for what they are at that moment, subjective, based on opinion, and not the absolute truth. An investor notices that his stocks have lost 20% of their value in a single day. He panics and can barely keep it together. But another investor who experiences the same 20% decline is delighted, as he now has an opportunity to purchase stocks at a bargain. Because of our subjective realities, whether something appears problematic really differs per person. On top of that, we see that solving one problem often leads to another problem. Some people just dwell in a perpetual stream of issues regardless of how many of them they solve. For example, a month later, the 20% drop has changed to a 50% increase, which means the previous problem, the 20% drop, has been solved. But the first investor then starts worrying that he didn't buy the dip, and thus he missed out on potential profit. He's even more distressed when he discovers that the other investor did buy the dip. So, even though his portfolio increased by 30%, he still perceives his situation as problematic. So it is with most things in life. There's always someone creating problems out of situations that aren't necessarily bad. Then, if the problems get solved, this person examines the status quo to propose even more problems. People with such fault-finding mindsets can endlessly solve issues by altering circumstances. It's just a matter of time until new ones arise. No set of circumstances will end their problems if they keep creating them. Psychologists use simple tests like the half-glass full concept to determine whether a person tends to be an optimist or a pessimist. Grab a clear glass and fill it halfway with water and try to describe it. Optimists will usually say the glass is half full, whereas pessimists will usually point out that it's half empty. Optimists tend to focus on the good, there is still water available to drink, while pessimists see the negative, there is water missing from what otherwise could be a full glass. Optimists tend to look on the bright side. They are hopeful and search for the good even in bad situations. Pessimists, on the other hand, tend to be more negative. While some pessimists will claim they're merely being realists, they do usually search for and find the black cloud behind every silver lining. We all face obstacles, but how we respond to those obstacles can make all the difference in the world. Optimists tend to see obstacles as opportunities. As a result, optimists who expect good things to happen will take actions that lead to positive results. Before landing on the decision of whether or not our problems actually exist, let's explore the nature of reality with the help of Eastern philosophical ideas. As human beings, reality as we experience it consists of countless concepts and ideas. These help us make sense of chaos by naming things, using labels, bundling elements together, distinguishing one thing from the other, and applying value judgments. These concepts and ideas can be collective and individual, meaning that the human world consists of billions of subworlds, which are all realities on their own. Hence, in one person's universe, the weather is fantastic, in another it's lame. Also, human reality isn't the only reality out there. Animals, and possibly even plants, have their unique perceptions of reality. The world of dogs primarily consists of smells. And because they cannot comprehend these concepts, they won't cause them any concern. Dogs are concerned with food, protecting their loved ones, and bodily affection, which are traits we share. And so, the worlds of humans and dogs intersect but are still very different from each other. No matter if we look at the world as humans or some other species, our realities are subjective and restricted to our unique worlds of experience. So, human problems aren't generally dog problems, and what seem problems to one person often aren't problems to another. In Eastern philosophy, we can find a concept called the two truths, which distinguishes between the relative truth, or known as conventional truth, and the absolute truth, which is the world as it is. The concept is much debated, and there isn't a consensus on the absolute truth, probably because it's pretty difficult to conceptualize what we cannot cognitively experience. Some argue that the absolute truth is emptiness, and if we manage to look past the illusion, we can experience that, in reality, nothing is there. And so, the actual universe goes beyond the senses. The Taoists call this absolute truth Tao. Lao Tzu described it as follows. The Tao is like an empty container, it can never be emptied and can never be filled. Infinitely deep, it is the source of all things. It dulls the sharp, unties the knotted, shades the lighted, and unites all of creation with dust. It is hidden but always present. I don't know who gave birth to it. It is older than the concept of God. But we could say, with relative certainty, that the concept signifies how we perceive the universe differs from the actual universe itself. Our senses determine our perception of the universe. We can only witness the world as far as our senses allow us to. And from this limited perception arises our relative truth. Relative truth is subjective. The notion that the weather lame isn't less valid than the opinion that the weather is fantastic. Isn't the same true regarding our problems? What's problematic to one isn't problematic to another. Problems, therefore, are also subjective. They're among the layer of conventional truth that obscures the absolute truth. They are as illusory as everything else our minds create. They are a perception of reality, not reality itself. They're mere interpretations of the circumstances, not the circumstances. They're among the layer of conventional truth that obscures the absolute truth. They are as illusory as everything else our minds create. They don't exist in the absolute reality, because if they did, everyone else would have encountered them as well. So, outside of our perceptions, there is no problem. There certainly are situations that pose a direct threat to our safety or other people's safety that require action. And some tend to be sticky and very difficult to tolerate, and thus we're probably better off doing something about them. However, our problems don't need to be solved in many cases. After all, they are creations of a fault-finding mind and don't represent reality in itself. Anything can be considered problematic. For example, a situation in which people dislike your physical appearance. Why does this appear as a problem? Because you're worried about other people's opinions. So, there are two things you can do. The first one is to try and solve your problem by changing your appearance, perhaps dress differently and improve your physique. The second one is to let go of the problem altogether, which, in this case, means that you accept your appearance and let go of the desire to be liked by those people. After all, the people disliking you aren't a problem in itself, the mind makes it so. Rather than directly solving our personal problems, non-action and meditation can help us to step away from our preoccupation with our problems. And this change in emphasis can sometimes make space for new solutions to arise or for the problem itself to diminish on its own. Some problems are better dissolved than solved. Changing our attitude is much more efficient and realistic than changing the world. Instead of changing outside occurrences to solve what we recognize as problems, we could also free ourselves from these problems by letting the discursive activities in our minds dissolve. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed your time and also made your time useful. Ease it.